Okay, so in this tutorial, I'm going to be walking you through how you can use our vintage lens vignettes in your editing software of choice. And I guess to start, before kind of getting to that, I want to kind of just tee off like what this pack is. Essentially, when you pair a large format sensor, like we used an ARRI Mini LF, which is an open gate 4.5K sensor. When you shoot on a large sensor with lenses designed for much smaller sensors like Super 35 and Super 16, you actually get these really cool vignettes, like in-camera vignettes. And what we ended up doing is we shot the sensor and these variety of vintage lenses on a 100% luminance white background, which allows you in post, which we're about to get to change the transfer mode or the blend mode to key out that white the same way you would key out like a green screen. So I guess to get started, like when you download the pack, it's going to come in a folder just like this. There's 3 different folders and they're organized in a way that's obviously very self-explanatory. The bonus folder, just to kind of get right to it, has a variety of like actual like mats that we put together with multiple vignettes. So if you actually wanted to key out these, zones and actually like drop in like an artist or a featured artist, like, I don't know, like we just thought this would be kind of fun for you to essentially kind of work into your project. We also have like this opening aperture. There was one lens in particular when we actually like opened up the iris or the T-stop, it created this really unique like vignette flare. And I remember me and Jake were like, okay, like we have to include this, even though like most of the pack is just like high resolution PNGs. We wanted to add that in there just for a bonus. But the bulk of the pack is going to come from these 2 folders, the spherical and the anamorphic. And as the name suggests, we just kind of like organize the lenses via like what kind of lens they were. And within each lens, you're going to see separate folders. One being basically a full circular vignette, which I've abbreviated in the actual individual file names as FCV, just to kind of condense the file size. And these full circle vignettes are, as the name suggests, like pretty much a full circle. I mean, in certain instances, it won't actually hit the top, but a majority of them, like you will really feel a full circle vignette, like a hole punch, if you will, in your footage. And I'm going to get to it here in a second, but when you key out the white using the multiply blend mode, you're left with this sort of black vignette, which is really cool. And then the other folder in that same sort of like file hierarchy is the edge vignettes. And these ones, as the name suggests, are much more subtle. Like you can kind of feel the edge on the side. And like this is just, I feel like has a somewhat of a wider use case because not every video or project or edit calls for that hole punch in the center. So we want to include like a subtler. We want to include like an alternate version where it allows you to still get that feeling of these vintage lens vignettes, but kind of like in a more like scaled back way. And then one question, I guess, just to answer before I get to like the tutorial aspect is, obviously you'll see like the actual like focal length we shot at. So this is like a 16 millimeter. And what's cool is like when you shoot one of these lenses and open up the T-stop or close down the T-stop or rack focus from deep focus to close focus, all of those subtle variances inside the lens actually create different effects. It creates a sharper vignette, a softer vignette, a more flary vignette. So we included all of those variations in these folders. So if you're kind of wondering like why one lens or one focal length has actually like 4 variations, you'll actually see, here, I'll kind of just pull up an example just so you can kind of get an idea. Like as I kind of scrub through these, you can kind of see that there's like just subtle variations and stuff. So we wanted to include that whole kind of kit to where you can make that choice on your own, depending on like what you're going for. But yeah, let's jump into Premiere Pro. Like I said, this can work in any editing app of your choice. And really the only thing that you need to know how to do if you're in Final Cut or Resolve is just navigate to the panel in your editing software that allows you to change the blend or transfer mode. So to get started, I'm going to bounce back to here and let's see, let's just choose, I think I'm gonna choose an anamorphic one. So let's see. Yeah, this one's kind of fun. And like this is what's actually really cool about this pack, just to deviate one more time, is some of these vignettes and some of these lenses, like you can actually see these like little notches on the side. Like these really come from just these like really rare like anamorphic and spherical lenses. And I think like initially when we thought about this pack, like we were thinking, oh, we could just like make some vignettes in Photoshop or whatever, and that would be cool. But like it's so hard to recreate these little like small like micro details like here and here, which only really come from doing it in camera. So yeah, that being said, let me drag this into my shot. Right now I just currently have just a shot from a music video, and I mean, not that it only works on these kind of shots. Like this shot I think just is a good example because like the shot is center punched. Obviously if your character is like left justified, these sort of center vignettes might not be the best use case. But for instance, I'm gonna turn this layer back on, and the first thing you actually want to do before even adjusting the blend mode is actually like scale it to or set to frame size. Depending on what resolution your footage or your timeline is, these vignettes are actually like 5K UHD. So, that should cover most like sensors, but in the event you need to, scale them up or scale them down, like they're very high resolution to where, adjusting them to your resolution shouldn't be an issue. So once that's done, the only other really step you have to do is bounce over here in Premiere Pro, it's near opacity, and then just go to multiply. So multiply, as you can see, just keyed out the white, much like you would key out a green screen. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, you also have a lot of creative license too. Like you feel free to like scale this to kind of fit right where you want it. So maybe you actually do want to kind of pull it back. I mean, mind you, we do have those edge vignettes that kind of do that as well. But I mean, that's the thing. Like this is just a starting point. Like once you have this above your footage, you can dial it into taste. I will say too, given that these are like high resolution PNG files, adding a layer of film grain above this will kind of help your vignette and your footage kind of sit in the same timeline. Like, if that makes sense, like the grain will really help like tie those two together. So, and given that these are high resolution PNGs, like you can actually do the same thing in Photoshop. So I'll actually, this is like a photo from one of our buddies. His name is Marty or Sixtiff. So yeah, say I want to like make it look like my camera was shooting on like these old kind of pinhole or vintage lenses. So I'll actually just kind of scale this to fit the photo. And though I'm kind of like skewing it in a way that's like obviously, I guess not uniformly scaling, I think for a photograph, it's actually not too big of a deal. Like I'm not really noticing too much like artifacting or anything happening. So once I have that locked in, all you really need to do is just like bounce up to here, and once again change it to multiply, and there you go. And like I said, you can kind of like dial this into taste. So maybe you actually like want to make the vignette a little bit bigger. Like there's kind of like so many ways you can go about this. But yeah, once again, that kind of wraps up basically what this pack is, how we went about capturing these vintage lenses, and yeah, how to kind of use them in video editing software, photo editing software. It's a very versatile pack, and we, like our team, had a ton of fun making these. And like to kind of spare you, I think the rental invoice to actually rent all this stuff was like over $10,000. So to like spare you the need to have to like source these cameras and these lenses, like these vignettes were captured from like some of the best camera equipment available. So I think this pack is going to be definitely one of those ones I reach for when I'm trying to create kind of like a stylized look in like a commercial or a music video. So anyways, I hope this video was helpful, and yeah, keep creating.